Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be testing out the Emma's Goodies mini donut recipe, and I hope you guys enjoy. So in her recipe, she called for self-rise flour, but I didn't have any, so I just decided to use all-purpose flour and then added a few more things in because I knew that all-purpose flour by itself wouldn't work. So she said to add 1 cup of flour, preferably self-rising flour, but like I said, I didn't have that, so I used all-purpose. So I used 1 cup of flour and then 5 ounces of plain yogurt. Now, because I used all-purpose flour, I went ahead and added 2 pinches of baking soda so that it would be easier for the dough to rise, and then I also added 1 pinch of salt. After adding all the ingredients, I went ahead and mixed it all up. I first used a spatula and then I couldn't do it anymore, so I went ahead and went in with my hands. And I did have to add a few more dollops of the yogurt because it was too hard. I think the reason why it was so hard was because I used all-purpose flour, so like I said, I would recommend using Emma's recommendation, which was the self-rise flour, because if you don't use that, then it'll make the dough much harder. So after everything was mixed up, I went ahead and got some avocado oil and put it onto some saran wrap just so that the dough wouldn't stick to it, and then we were gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes to help all of the flour absorb the moisture. So while I was waiting for the dough to rise, I went ahead and melted a tablespoon of butter, and then I went ahead and got out some powdered sugar and some milk. This is going to be used for the glaze over the donuts. Keep in mind when adding the powdered sugar, a lot goes a little way, so make sure you don't add too much liquid or you'll have to put a ton of powdered sugar in to balance the 2 ratios. So when doing this step, you want to make sure that you add the powdered sugar and the butter first before you add the milk, because if you add the milk to hot butter, the butter will curdle and then it just won't be a good texture. For this, you kind of just have to eyeball it. I just eyeballed it. I added more liquid until it got to the right consistency. Make sure you don't add too much liquid because, like I said, you'll have to add a lot more powdered sugar to get it back to the right consistency. After about 30 minutes of the dough setting, I went ahead and got some flour and floured my surface so that the dough wouldn't stick to the surface when I was making the donut shapes. Emma's recommendation was to use a rolling pin, but I didn't have one, and if I did, it was all the way in the basement and I didn't feel like getting it, so I went ahead and used a clean cup and just rolled it out after flattening it a little bit. This definitely wasn't the most ideal process, but if you don't have a rolling pin or you don't feel like getting one, then this is a great alternative. So for my shape cutouts, I couldn't find any specific type of cookie cutter that were 2 different size circles, so I just used a funnel, and the big part was to make the donut part, and then the small part was to make the actual donut hole. And then I just moved that around and it literally made a perfect mini donut. So this was the first batch of the mini donuts, and I ended up just continuing this process until it was done. So Emma's recommendation was to put the dough onto like one of these strainers and then put it into the oil, but I actually found that it was easier to just drop them in, so that's what I would recommend. So you have to wait until they are a little bit more yellow until you take them out. You don't want them to be golden brown. You want them to be about this color so that they aren't burnt and so they're gooey on the inside. Then you put it on a double paper towel on top of a plate to let the oil seep out of them, and then you're done. For my method of putting the dough into the oil, I literally put them on my hand and then drop them in. Just be careful of the oil splatter. So with the rest of the dough, I decided to make a bigger one, which in the long run actually wasn't a great idea, but it looked cool while I had it. So this is the final outcome of the donuts after they've been fried. This is before the glaze. So the first thing I did was take the donuts off of the plate, and then I went ahead and just grabbed a handful of them and put them into the glaze, evenly coated them, and then drip dried them so it wasn't dripping, and then put them onto the plate. So these are the donuts after they have had one coat of glaze, and they actually look really good. So I went ahead and colored the rest of the glaze that I had 2 different colors, and then just drizzled it on top to make it look pretty. I also went ahead and added some sprinkles just for good measure. And this is your final result. Honestly, I think they look really good, but they look better than they actually are. At least mine were not as good as I wanted them to be. This is the big one, and I think it looks really cute. What's really nice about this recipe is that you don't just have to glaze them. You can glaze them, you can dip them, you can do whatever you want with them. In my opinion, the glaze was the best part. The donuts themselves were a bit too chewy and really rubbery for some reason. I think it was the flour, and I would recommend this recipe, but I wouldn't recommend it with whole flour. That is all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. I will have Emma's Goodies YouTube channel linked in the description, so definitely go check her out. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!